They'll rush three. Carpenter moves up into a gap. Now you back out. Second down and 9. Got a lot of time. Throws in zone. Cut! Touchdown, Texas! What a great play for the Horns. Stewart has slot to his left. Using Parker in motion, and Butler takes him. They'll look for Parker on a quick hit. Parker, touchback, 10, 5, end zone, out of bounds. Touchdown, touchdown, got it, touchdown. The Aggies upset Kansas State.
And welcome everyone to Lone Star Yell Fight, where we're talking all things college football, Texas Aggies, Texas Longhorns, from the greatest country in these United States. All right, everybody, welcome back to Lone Star Yell Fight. We are back. We were not here last week, so this is the first time in 2 weeks, and luckily, Andy, nothing has happened.
Nothing at all. I can tell you that Bowling State University's colors, which is Bowling State, Ohio, not Kentucky, so we did have a viewer point out that we would not be able to see our favorite minor league team. But
it's our
frankly,
level of research that makes us stand out.
I hate to sound like a stereotypical Texan, but Kentucky, Ohio, is there a difference? I don't really think so.
Not much of one.
They chose brown and orange not because of the Cleveland Browns, although neither of them have orange in their color scheme for any particular reason, other than some guy in 1914 sat behind a woman on a train and saw that she had feathers in her hat that were both brown and orange, and that's how they picked their school colors in 20 or 110 years ago.
Wow.
So burnt orange and something called seal brown. Not a great combo, but if you ever wondered if the South Central Louisiana State University Mud Dogs had a uniform inspiration, very well could have been the Bowling Green Tigers, Eagles, Falcons, something.
Was that did we just do a deep dive for Waterboy? I love it. A deep dive into the Waterboy.
There are just so few good football movies that Waterboy becomes one by default.
Yeah, I mean, the program's not a good movie, but yet it stands as one of the best about college football.
Yeah, it's a movie of its time.
Yes.
It's of its time.
Place at the table. Poor Dennis Haysbert. No, that wasn't Dennis Haysbert, yeah.
And why did this come up? Because A&M has bought themselves another game, similar to the Louisiana Fighting Mud Dogs that you guys are playing, and your other purchased win this week.
Yeah, we've got a purchased win, which is good because after a really impressive win at Michigan and then a very impressive win with UTSA, considering the fact that Quinn Ewers went out, it's probably good that that's the draw because Arch Manning will be making his first start at Texas. Many people want it to be Quinn Ewers' last start at Texas. And I'd like to point out that all he had done before he went hurt was complete 14 of 16 for 180 yards. That's all he had done.
But his last name isn't Manning.
It's true.
And so it's interesting that both of our schools have quarterback controversies. Yours is based on some, like I said, the name recognition, but actual performance by both guys that's given you hope that either one's going to be good. And I guess if I'm a fan, Quinn hasn't won anything yet exactly, except a Big 12 championship, but we're not going to talk about that. So, 6 1/2 dozen of another. Quinn's going to leave after this year anyway. Let's move forward with the future. Even though, as much as it pains me to say this as an A&M fan, you guys are the number one team in college football right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like you've been underperforming at the quarterback position, regardless if we've been taking snaps.
I would argue we're largely the number one team in the country because having a senior quarterback with 3 years experience in the system is one of the things that they've looked at.
And yet fan dissatisfaction seems to still exist in corners of at least the internet fandom. What's up with that?
Yeah, well, I don't get it. And one of the things that it's so emblematic of what's wrong with what's broken about sports media is because you can imagine my YouTube suggestions were all filled with explosive headlines of should Arch Manning replace Quinn Ewers? And then every time you click on the video, the guy just says no. And it's like, right, well, that's the right answer, but Boy, you sure really did your best to draw us in. No, look, he shouldn't. I still believe in the old adage that you don't lose your job to injury. It's not like he was um, playing poorly. Although I guess Chance Mock was playing really great too, and they benched him for Vince Young. But Arch Manning has got a long way to go before he's Vince Young. No, I think one of the things that was key for it though was, the injury looked worse than it was. It's an abdominal strain, which when he walked out of there could have been anything from a broken rib to a shattered ankle. Like it just didn't really know. They just said it was lower body, but he wasn't limping. So I will take a strained abdominal muscle over any of the other possibilities that could have happened. Again, a broken rib, something to his legs, or shattered spleen. Isn't that what happened to Chris Sims when he was a pro? Right, his spleen got shredded in half when he got hit. So yeah, I'll take it over any other injury. Now you've got two games to let Arch Manning start before Texas comes back for OU. So really, Manning doesn't have to play for 3 weeks. He's got plenty of time to get that healed up.
And so that's kind of I from the outside, I don't know why it's a controversy or why people are thinking Ewers should be starting this week. He's injured, and you're playing Louisiana Monroe, the least of Louisiana teams, I believe. It's not like you have to, oh no, how are we going to win this game without our starting quarterback? You literally could play whoever is on your bench besides Arch Manning and still win the game handily. So I don't understand why people would be pushing to have an injured quarterback going instead of the healthy quarterback, regardless of what the last name is.
I think it's because they didn't watch last week, and so they just assume that Ewers got benched for something because they only tuned in for Michigan.
Well, that's fair.
That's the only thing I got. Honestly, it's all I got.
The Austin Tree team is stealing a lot of fans away in Austin, the soccer.
Yeah, it's real popular here. I've been to a game. It was fine.
Just had Lasso there.
Yeah, that's what they do. So what's up with now? You do have a different quarterback controversy going there in College Station. So what's going on there?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Connor Wigman is injured, and in his place, Marcel Reed went to Swamp and beat a bad Florida team, but he played really, really well.
Yeah.
And so
but the thing is Wigman wasn't playing really, really well.
Well, he didn't play well against Notre Dame. He played well in his half against whatever purchase game we had right after that. And then they pulled him out at the half. And then he had a shoulder injury that evidently happened during the Notre Dame game, but got worse during practice the week after that game before Florida. So they held him out. Marcel Reed got the start. And now it's an AC joint injury, so it's not something that's going to completely heal the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So Marcel Reed played well in the game against Florida. Marcel Reed also played horribly in that half. Well, let's say not as good in that half against whoever that was between Notre Dame. I'm literally struggling to remember, but it's somebody we beat handily. So it's neither one of the quarterbacks has this book of performance that you can go, hey, this guy is the unquestioned starter and should be, outside of the fact that Wegman won the competition coming out of camp. But things change once the game starts sometimes. And I think that's okay. I think that Elko is handling it as best as he can. Of course, as we both know, the most popular player on the campus is the backup quarterback, always.
I lived in a town where Cody Carlson was the most popular player in the history of the city.
It's behind a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Commander Cody.
At least, you guys, neither one of our schools has the Astros medical staff diagnosing these injuries to their starting quarterbacks, because Lord knows what would happen. For us, it's a little bit different because you guys have kind of a timeline for Wegman and his AC injury. It's going to be something that he deals with the rest of the season, and it's just a matter of how much pain he can play with and how much that injury kind of quells itself over time.
How much does that injury? I mean, I'm assuming it's a shoulder injury, so it's not great. Is that really going to affect his performance outside of the pain?
Well, I mean, he was technically injured and it's really bugging me now, this second game in my old man memory. He was injured, like I said, against Notre Dame, and I'm just gonna look this up live on the
Hey.
show. State, sorry, another Louisiana team. Thank you, Louisiana, for
Yeah,
providing
thank you.
us so many opponents. He played the half. They scored a touchdown on literally every drive that he was a quarterback on. He played well, but at some point the pain got to be more. It was affecting his mechanics, and they decided to shut it down because we have what they feel is a capable backup. The best thing that can happen, in my mind, is that Marcel Reed plays this week and plays lights out, and that they do the same thing the next week against Arkansas. Whoever's going, I don't really care at this point. I've got no emotional attachment to either one of these guys because they both have flaws. Neither one of them have won anything of note yet, so they're both kind of blank slates in my mind. Wegman's got a longer history with A&M, but he's also been hurt for a good portion of that history. So there's been flashes. I think if you, in a vacuum, you'd pick Wegman because he has a better talent profile, but I don't know that he's the best talent profile for what this A&M team needs to win games this year. I don't know that he's the kind of quarterback that fits well in Colin Klein's offense, but again, we don't really know because we've seen him for a game and a half, the same that we've seen Reed in. So it's interesting. I'm just happy we played well on a road game because, as I noted, it was the first time in 1,068 days that A&M had won a road game. That's fun. That's a fun stat.
Wow, really?
November 16th, 2021 was the last time we won a road game.
Well, there you go.
Now,
how does the offense change? Does the offense for A&M change much between each guy?
So here's the issue. We have skill players that are lesser than they probably need to be. I think our running backs are good. Really the three that are playing right now are the only three that we have, but they're playing well. So although we lost Ruben Owens for the season before the season started, and he would have been a big contributor out of the backfield, the other guys have picked up that slack and they're playing really well. Quarterback is what it is. They're both talented enough, but our wide receivers are not great at things that you need to be great at when you're a wide receiver. Running routes, getting separation, catching the ball. Those things.
Details.
So it allows defenses to kind of concentrate on the run. So if you can occasionally pass, it's harder to run the ball. And that's what Colin Klein's defense or offense is kind of about, is creative ways of getting the ball to playmakers in space, like most offensive coordinators. But that includes a heavy dose of running backs, catching passes out of the backfield and running kind of exotic runs, those kind of things. So what Reed does, because he's faster and more of a scrambler, more of a dual threat than Wegman, is providing another person that the defense has to account for when plays break down, which opens up passing lanes because your safeties have to play up, your linebackers have to play closer. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, in the context of what our offense is this year, and knowing that we don't have that game-breaking wide receiver or two of them that can go out and catch balls over the top, get great separation from really good defensive backs, that fits better. Now, having said that, I think Wegman has better quarterbacking skills in that a smaller window he can throw into, and the offense is still evolving because this is everybody's first year in this offense. So it's kind of a boring answer, but it's kind of too early to tell since we just played game 3.
One of the things that you have to be concerned about, though, with Wigman is, yeah, he might feel fine at the beginning of the game, but you're playing an SEC defense. The first time he takes a shot, that could be it for the rest of the game, and now you're in a relief situation as opposed to just starting a different guy.
Yeah, and the good news is we don't have to play one of those this week. I kind of expect Reed to get the start and for them to let Wegman heal for another week. But I think Wegman, provided there's no setback, is going to be out on the field versus Arkansas. And they don't really play SEC defense either. Scott McIntyre. Thanks for watching, buddy.
I don't think he watches anymore, but okay.
That's fine. We're all geared up to hopefully win these next 2 games with Bowling Green and Arkansas before we get Missouri at home. Missouri is a real deal. And it's interesting from a standpoint. Offensively, we've got to get better. Defensively, we've played well, but we haven't really played any teams that pass the ball well. this weekend will actually be the first test. Bowling Green has the best tight end in the nation, according to a number of scouts. He's a first round prospect for the NFL this year. Their quarterback's good as long as he doesn't get pressure. We'll pressure him and we'll win that game. Arkansas is better at throwing the ball. They've got good skill. They've got good receivers. So that'll be a step up from that. Then Missouri's a great offensive team this year. So it's working out well that we kind of get a little bit tougher challenge each of the next 3 weeks or each of the next 2 weeks before we get into Arkansas. And then we have the break that you guys get next week with Mississippi State, which also is not playing SEC defense. Although I guess they get to put a little TM because it just means more. So I think an honest A&M fan would tell you we're excited about the possibilities, but there's just a lot of unknown because college football is weird. There's only 3 games, but we're already a quarter of the season done.
Yeah.
And for all the people who are baseball fans in my life who say that baseball takes too long to play a season, because it does take almost 7 months, actually 8, if you're good. Sorry, Rangers.
Pour one out for those guys, huh?
Yeah. Well, I guess technically they're still not eliminated from the playoffs until later today.
Wow. Here's what, but you know what, Rangers? I hope you get a sweep this weekend.
They've got the next, I don't know, 12 hours to look forward to next year. Yeah, it's football. College football just comes and goes so fast. But in the context of the season, it feels like kind of an eternity, especially when you're not good. I would assume on your end right now, it's going too fast.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'd like it to slow down a little bit now, especially with again, the injury to Quinn Ewers. I think with Quinn Ewers in there, it is a national championship level team. It was interesting to listen to Joe Klatt on Colin Cowherd after the Michigan game, and he said, because remember Joel Klatt, excuse me, he was the starting quarterback in Colorado in 2005 when Texas beat them for the Big 12 championship 70-3, and he feels like this team is better than that team. Now that's a big, almost sacrilegious to say down here, but you can see that there is a level of talent we haven't seen there in a long time. I think that you will not see a drop off next year when Arch Manning is the starter, but you're still going to have those first year hiccups, and I would rather not have it this year when everything's going together. Although it was really impressive. Like, I mean, honestly, his arm talent is clearly there. He actually can move, unlike other Mannings. I think his 67 yards rushing on that one play was more than his uncles had in the NFL combined for their whole careers. But, we're efforting that information.
Cooper did say the athletic part came from his mom. So,
yeah.
So
He did.
whoever he married, good job. You've spliced the genes correctly with Arch.
Go ahead.
No, I think I don't know if I'm ready to anoint this version of the Longhorns a national championship quite yet. There's still, a number of games to play. You are going to eventually step up in competition. Because
I said level contenders. What I said, I didn't.
And I'm not saying you. Just in general, there's been a lot of this is a national championship team, and maybe, but you do still have to play Georgia, even though it's at home. Georgia has trouble scoring points, but they do have a defense better than anything you've seen yet. There are teams where there'll be a step up in level. Michigan, I guess, was your biggest challenge on the schedule so far, and Michigan's pretty bad.
Yeah, particularly on offense. Their defense is still pretty good. The offense is nothing. Yeah,
so it'll be interesting to watch that progress. I don't know that I'm, willing to anoint yet the undefeated perfect season. And a team that does win a national championship should be kind of held in reverence. If we had one in the last 80 years, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And also it's just a different, I mean, like I would love to have one more year of the BCS just this year. So that way I feel like it would be a little bit easier road because you theoretically could have to beat Georgia 3 times to win the national championship.
Yeah. And there are teams on your schedule. There are teams that you're not playing this year that are pretty good. Tennessee's really good.
Yeah.
Tennessee might have an offense as good as y'all's. Um, Alabama is playing well. I mean, that's just in conference. Ohio State, I think, is still a team that people are going to have to contend with. So there's some players. I don't think it's you and Georgia just quite yet penciling in for a national championship, but
Maybe.
who knows?
Either way, it's
I
gonna be
just
fun. And I'm glad that Quinn is gonna be able to come back from this. And I think you can't measure how valuable the next two games will be for Arch, because anytime you get to start, it's a whole different deal than coming in. You come in as a backup, and you can kind of rely a little bit on emotion, and this is gonna be a little bit different deal for him.
Yeah, I did want to point out because I know that this is being your first year in the SEC, and there's some things that you just have to get used to. One of the things that I want to point out to our, people who do watch this show who will be of a certain vintage, um, if you already have a live TV provider, you don't have to pay for ESPN Plus. I just want to point this out to everybody because it seems to be a big point of contention on Twitter with amongst the Longhorn fans that I follow.
Yeah.
Because this week's game's on streaming. You're on ESPN Plus and SEC Network Plus. If you're subscribed to YouTube TV or Hulu Live TV, that game's already going to be on there. But so let's say you're not, but you have DirecTV or you have Xfinity or something else. You can go to the ESPN app, stream your game. Don't subscribe. You don't have to. Just find the game because you've already paid for it. Little tip.
Yeah, they definitely don't sell that at the beginning, do they? ESPN trying to get that $10.
Yeah, but it's going to be you can annually count on one of your games being on one of the streaming channels at least. Especially, usually it's going to be the Monroes of the world, and it's a little too close for comfort in my book.
Yeah, no. You're on it today.
Would have liked to be on a couple of the daughters when that show was on. But I was also 13, so
that's the thing, right? So that would have made me, I guess, 10. Still old enough to appreciate it.
Yes. That's back when people always wore sweaters on TV, no matter how hot or cold it was.
I know. Like I remember I was watching some 80s. It was an old 80s. Yeah, you know what I was watching? I was watching Friday Night Videos. That's right. The entire stream from 1984, including commercials. And there was a guy at the beach with shorts on, basically wearing the Eddie Murphy outfit from Trading Places. He's on the beach with a sweater and shorts. I'm like, what are you, Eddie? Eddie. It's called a sweater. You don't need it.
Well, I think if you don't wear a shirt under the sweater, then it's just a shirt.
Ugh.
Maybe that's how it works. But then you have the acrylic scratching on your nipple. It's not, none of it's good.
The rough nipple thing is tough. It's like you ran a marathon without doing the work.
I could never be a marathon runner just because the band-aids on the nipples would have been too much.
Yeah. But if you don't get them, I mean, like we've all seen like in Scrubs when he was bleeding from his nipples. Remember that? And he was just, nipple bleeding, man.
I would like to point out this is what happens when both of our schools schedule nobody for a week.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to talk about is nipple bleeding on Scrubs.
Nipple bleeding. I mean, well, and it's funny because there's a lot of people who don't know football who look at Texas scheduling a UTSA or Louisiana Monroe, and they don't recognize that the reason the schools play those games is they get paid. I mean, they pretty much fund their athletic department or a large chunk of it just based on playing that game. And there's a reason why they do it. It isn't just because Texas wants to beat up on people, but those schools use the money they make to further their own smaller athletic department. So they are important to the landscape. And there's no preseason in college football. If there was, you wouldn't have those games.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ecosystem question that's going to be interesting to answer if things progress the way we expect them to progress with, 4, 16 or 18 team conferences or whatever that ends up being, because I think the impetus will be to only play teams within that ecosystem. And so everybody else is at a lower level, so you're not going to have the game against Bowling Green. And frankly, I'm not excusing anything. A&M should win this game handily, but Bowling Green is one of the better of the group of 5 teams. They should be in contention for a playoff spot. They've almost beat Penn State, although Penn State, woke up in the second half and held them to 37 yards in the entire half. So it's not something I'm worried about, but they do have NFL quality players,
Sure.
a couple of them. As you get lower and lower past the MAC, and I'm ready for some action this weekend, You get lower and lower into the Sun Belt. You get lower and lower in that, and then you start talking about I don't know where Sam Houston is these days, Conference USA. I know they moved up, but the talent
Pretty soon they're going to be
disparity.
in the Pac-12. That's what's going to happen.
Well, the Pac-12 refuses to die. It should, but I guess if you are Washington State and Oregon State and you just want to hold on to that history and have a chance of finally winning a conference championship, one of those teams is going to break a streak this year.
Yeah,
A pretty lengthy streak.
They need to drag the Pac-12 out like old Yeller.
There won't be any asterisks on that Pac-12 championship trophy.
Not a one. One last conversation, though, as we get ready to wrap up, though, is Tennessee is going to be raising their season ticket prices for football because of the incoming revenue sharing. So I guess it's happening like we predicted, and it's also happening like we should have known, is that it's going to be passed on to the consumer when that factors into when they have to start basically playing the players. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's going to be headed down that road. I mean, Tennessee's put the first one out there, but I'm sure that they're not the first AD to think of that, and they won't be the last one to implement it. I'm a little bit amazed that the NCAA stopped Oklahoma State from putting QR codes on the back of helmets, so you could see a good play, watch that player on TV, and then scan the QR code and make a donation to that player. It's like we've talked about, revenue sharing is about to happen next year. And for these large schools, this is a multi-million-dollar, tens of millions of dollar line item that they're going to have to distribute to these athletes. And that means other money has to come in from somewhere to continue to fund things like facilities and salaries and all the other stuff that goes in with putting on a athletic department in 2024. This isn't just football. This is swimming and volleyball and track and field and all the others. Quidditch.
5 times national championships.
Exactly. I want to give you your props. So the money's got to come from somewhere. If you're taking, let's say, $20 million out of your bottom line to distribute to athletes, the athletic department at Tennessee is going to have to come up with creative ways to fundraise that doesn't look like revenue, so they don't have to share it with the athletes necessarily. I think we're going to see a lot more interesting things like that. I think, having a QR code on a jersey or a helmet is just the beginning of the things the teams are going to try to do to supplement smaller NIL programs or even make great NIL programs better. And then, the schools are going to have to fill in the gaps because their alumni, their fan bases in places like Alabama and Tennessee, where those schools are the athletic program, they are the pro sports practically for those states. Nobody's going to be forgiving if the product suffers because the money's not there.
Right. And again, you kept talking about they have to find $20 million. The logical answer is we'll just give it to them because they've earned it. Instead, no, they're going to pass it on to, again, the consumers. It's like a tariff.
Oh, no. Well, half of our country doesn't understand how tariffs work, Joe. So I don't think we want to be that show.
Bevo came up to me, big, strong Bevo, big cow, big orange, tears in his eyes.
Well, yeah, because he's a coward. He's sedated so he doesn't kill people. It makes them cry. Yeah, it's just there's going to continue to be ways to squeeze money out of this program because the athletic departments are feeling their way through. Neither one of us disagree that the players should receive what's fair. I don't have a problem with them receiving more than what's fair. It's how the free market works. We're supposed to be a capitalist country. We should applaud that. But the other side of that is somebody's got to fund that. And it's not going to be just the schools taking out of their coffers. It's going to go back to the fans. It's going to go back to the ticket buyers. It's going to go back to you buy a merchandise shirt with a logo. It's going to cost you $5 more.
Yeah, definitely.
that's how it's going to be. And you can either choose to embrace pro sports and move that way, or you can continue to root for your college, the college of your choice, and understand it's going to be more expensive going forward.
Yeah, I was talking to my brother-in-law about this, and obviously it means that something that we had before that was special is lost and it's different. But it's also a belt you can't unrung. You can't go back in time, and I don't think you should. So you either have to, like you said, kind of decide whether you can or still feel the same way about what this slightly new product is or not, and make a different consumer decision. But
And I feel like we repeat ourselves on this show about this topic a little bit, but again, I don't have any issue with the players receiving compensation for their performance or for their membership on the team, or however you want to phrase it. The only issue I have with what's changed in college football over the last 5 years is the unlimited transfers, and a lot of people put those two things together, and one brings the other. I don't think that's true. I think they happened at the same time, and people get those jumbled them together, and this is what broke college football. The money didn't break college football because, frankly, the money's always been there. It's just been how you were able to funnel it to different people.
silver trans or gold Trans Ams, baby.
Yeah, but if I'm looking objectively about why I would care less about my college football team, it's because you don't have the general understanding that you're going to be watching these players develop over 4 years. You have, in some cases, 1 year to get the most out of this player that you can, because they might go somewhere else. And yes, they might go somewhere else for more money or a better NIL deal, but they might just go somewhere else because they don't like your coach, or they don't like your town, or they don't like the food in the dining hall, whatever it is. That part's been harder for me. But at some point, you root for the name on the front of the jersey versus the name on the back of the jersey. I'm sure if Arch Manning decided to go pro after the end of this year, because he's been in college for 2 years, you would cherish what you got out of him this year, be a little bit upset about it, but move on to the next guy, because somebody's going to be playing quarterback for the University of Texas next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. And that's it. It's a brave new world. You can decide how much you want to participate in it. I still love the product. I get really excited on Saturdays, and I like knowing that if these guys are going to get their heads bashed in, at least they're getting paid for it instead of, not, because they are putting themselves at risk for the slight opportunity of going to the NFL. And as we saw with Tua last weekend, even that's not a guarantee. So I think definitely with this sport in particular, they need to be getting their taste of what is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, I mean, Tua's not getting any compensation for the fact that I cut him from my fantasy team right before he went on the IR, and that's sad for him.
You're a cold bastard.
Yeah, so it's the cutthroat nature of fantasy football.
I totally get it. I had to walk away from it. I was an addict. I think I made other people's nipples bleed with how into it I was. That's all I got to say about that.
That's why I don't do fantasy baseball, because it's an everyday, all-day prospect to manage your team. Football at least is once a week, although now it's Thursday through Monday. You really just have Tuesday and Wednesday off, which is irritating.
Yeah, well,
but I mean, put it on my list of things I'm irritated about. College football should not be played on Friday nights, and yet there's a college football game every Friday night now. I really don't think it should.
Yeah, especially in the state of Texas, it shouldn't.
No, and there really shouldn't be college football on Thursdays. I understand where the money is, and you only have a limited number of TV slots, so you're creating new ones, but it's for Saturday. Do it for Saturday.
Yeah, you're creating new TV slots, and you're also realizing that the networks only have two things they're making ad revenue on anymore, and it's sports and the news.
What about the pieces of how your quarterback saved a puppy and bought a bass boat with his roommate, whose parents were both roommates at the same school 50 years before? And I mean, I love those pieces. I love them when they run them incessantly for 3 hours on game day.
Time. Yeah, I wonder what the old Longhorn Network staff is doing so that they can't just keep pushing play on the 2005 National Championship every 3 hours.
Well, do they still run? They could still run the Cooking with Augie segments.
Oh, I actually miss those. Every taco he ever had was the best taco he ever had. Much like this show, Andy. That will, in fact, wrap us up for this weekend. You got any final thoughts on the Aggies on Saturday?
I expect us to win. I expect y'all to win. I don't even think putting a score out there. I'll be very sad if we lose, let's put it that way. It won't be a understanding, well, it was a better opponent kind of thing. It will be because we stepped on our dicks, which we're fully capable of. I'm hoping this new coaching regime is, hey, we're not going to step on our dicks anymore. That's the thing. Let's try it. Let's go with that. And so far, first test on the road, winning a game for the first time in 3 years, they passed. So,
no dick steppage.
No dick stepping.
No dick steppage. That's all we can ask for. I guess for one last question, then you and I are going to be at the last Astros home game of the season. Will they have clinched the division by the time we sit down on Wednesday?
I think that we will both be very nervous if they haven't. Because
yeah,
I probably shouldn't have won with baseball show. We shouldn't have won last night, but we did because the Angels suck. The Angels will continue to suck all weekend. It's a matter of our bats show up. So if we win all four, then it's a matter of winning one of the games in Seattle or against Seattle. I'm confident we can do that. I'd rather it not go to the third of those games, though.
Me too. I want us to have our T-shirts on when we're sitting down. All right, for our favorite Aggie on Andy Tom Chesson, I am your hopefully favorite Longhorn Jim Christopher. We will see you next week.